A lot of people are worried, oh no, this game's going to be cross-gen. That's not what you need to worry about. I'll tell you towards the end of the video what you need to be worried about when it relates to God of War. However, let's talk about this clip real quick. I was kind of amazed that this little clip of video annoyed so many people.
Oh, I'm sure the next God of War will be PS4, PS5. Of course it will. I mean, Jim Ryan has pretty much said as much.
This is from a 7-hour God of War stream I did the other night. It gets posted on Twitter. Certain news media picks it up. Video game journalism picks it up. They promote it as fact. Like Jaffe is saying that God of War is going to be cross-gen. Now, let's clearly no. That it was an opinion. Even if I had insider information, I wouldn't give it out. All I was doing was speculating based on what Jim Ryan has already said in the press and based on the fact that anybody with even a slightly working brain would understand that God of War Ragnarok, or whatever they end up calling it, is going to be a cross-gen title. This really bothers some gamers, and I'm just like, if you guys that are bothered by this were in the exact same chair as Jim Ryan or Herman Holst, you would be making the exact same goddamn decision that these guys are making. Look, would you take the Avengers if you were Marvel, if you had Avengers Endgame and only put it on IMAX screens? If you were HBO and you had the final season of Game of Thrones, would you only allow it to be broadcast on TVs that are like 4K? It doesn't make any sense. Again, you would do the exact same thing that Sony is probably going to do, which is they are going to take this flagship title, one of their biggest titles, and they are going to put it in as many places as they can. When we did God of War 1, I remember, I was like, oh my God, we got to get God of War 2 on PS3. And Shuhei, rightly so, was like, I know you guys want to see Kratos in all of his next-gen glory, but we have over 100 million PlayStation 2s out in people's homes. We're not going to not put this huge hit on that piece of hardware. I'm sorry, we're just not going to do it. And we pushed back a little bit, but then it was, it didn't take much brain power to understand, yeah, the guy's fucking right. It's good business. It makes fucking sense, right? The only argument I've heard that kind of makes a little sense, not enough to make me change my view on this, but at least it's kind of coming from a place with some insight of someone saying, look, man, if you put this exclusively on PS5, you're going to push more PS5 systems. I think that's a good point, but I don't think when you look at the landscape, PS5 already has titles that are announced and that will be announced that are specific to PlayStation 5, that are there to do that. The amount of sales that you might get for a very expensive piece of new hardware because God of War is exclusive to it and it looks amazing on it, probably is dwarfed by the amount of money Sony would make if they spread out God of War, especially making sure that it launches on PlayStation 4, which has 15 million units sold through. I'm sure they've run the numbers and made those decisions. The other thing to think about is people are like, oh, but it's not going to be the best version. It's like, first off, who are you talking about? You're not talking about 3DO back in the day when they were making Army Men. Sony Santa Monica is one of the best developers on the goddamn planet. Your eyeballs will bleed for the new God of War when it hits PS5, even if there is a version on PS4. I have no doubt about that. The last game I did, Drawn to Death, which was tiny, teeny potatoes for Sony compared to this, we were coming out around the same time as the PS4, and they even said, look, if there wasn't time to do it, but they were willing to pay more money. They're like, we want to make sure gamers feel taken care of if they've bought the PS4 Pro. So can you guys put a lot more oomph for the PS4 Pro version of Drawn to Death? And we wanted to. We had a bunch of ideas drawn out. We just didn't have the time to do it. So I would be stunned if that same logic isn't applying and flowing through to the Ragnarok team. I am sure they are like, these are the PS5 assets. These are the PS4 assets. We're going to blow the fuck out of the PS5 assets. Now, yeah. Are you going to get a little bit more probably loading limits for the SSD lack in the PS4 that carries over to the PS5? Probably. Not necessarily, not if they built from the ground up, but let's assume probably. Let's assume that's going to happen. This is the game that you guys are saying is the game of the generation, the best game ever made, blah, blah. And it's great. I played it the other day for the first time. Fucking phenomenal game. You'll survive. You'll survive if Kratos has to sort of climb a little bit of a mountain or take an elevator to load a Valkyrie that you have to fight if the game looks as amazing as it's going to look. So chill the fuck out would be my suggestion. But I appreciate why you would want to get the absolute most bleeding edge visuals for your system. I get it. I understand it. That would be great. But I don't think when you really think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense. But yeah, the main thing that really annoyed me is just how irrational some gamers were. You know, attacking me, attacking Sony. I mean, again, they have that right. I don't care. But it was more just like, guys, what do you think this is? This is a business. Sometimes these gamers really confuse me or piss me off, and or both, because it's like they act, I've said this before, they act like they've gone out and they've bought like a top of the line Ferrari, and they expect Sony to treat them as these sort of high-end boutique customers. Now look, $500 is no chump change, but they didn't buy a Ferrari. They bought like a Lexus. The Ferrari is a high-end PC. The Ferrari is a high-end PC with the fucking the Vive headset. That's the Ferrari of games. This is a Lexus. This is a nice mid-range Lexus is what you got. So you're not sitting in this position of you are the elite and you deserve every little thing to be bordered with gold trim and shit. I mean, it's a mainstream console. What did you expect was going to happen? I'm just kind of stunned by the irrationality and annoyance on the part of gamers. I get their position, but it's like, come the fuck on. Here's what they should be worried about. Now, let me preface this, because the news media picked up the whole thing I said about God of War, and they ran with it like I was making some sort of statement of some inside information, which of course I wasn't. So let's be clear. This is just me wondering out loud. It's speculation. Yes, NeoGaf. As some of you in NeoGaf go, I'm not working on the game. My opinion is just like your opinion. You know as much as I know, blah, blah, blah. I got it, fellas. Okay. Forget my experience, forget my knowledge of the game that's being developed right now, forget my knowledge of the team, forget the people I know that I talk to regularly that work in the industry and at that company. But you're right. Our opinions are exactly the same. You're big boy too, okay? You guys are good there, okay? Now listen, here's what you should be worried about. Jim Ryan, who's the head of PlayStation now, you know what he did before he was the head of PlayStation? He was the head of global sales and marketing, which meant that he was all about sales, right? Now, I'm not saying this is accurate. I don't have any data to back this up. It's only a worry. Every God of War, from the one I started to working on the second one and knowing about all the other God of Wars, have always slipped. They have always moved out because that team, rightly so, wants to put their best foot forward to make the best fucking game possible. God of War 1 was supposed to come out, and 2, I think, was supposed to come out around Christmas. It always came out in March, right? Because March is the end of fiscal year. Well, I don't know enough about Jim Ryan to know. Like with Shu, we knew. Shu was a guy who was like very good with the balance of business and art, business and creativity. So he would be like, look, you can't have indefinite time or you're a fucking moron, but you can have until the end of March. It sucks we're going to miss Christmas, but we're playing the long game when it comes to this franchise. If you're Jim Ryan now and this game has been announced for 2021, I don't know if he's going to be as forgiving for things like, yeah, we agree, Sony Santa Monica, says Jim Ryan, this game could be even more amazing if you put it out in 2022 in March. But you know what? I'm a sales guy, trust me. This is our biggest franchise. We need this out for Christmas. I know you want to add this level of polish and this level of detail. Sorry. This is the guy who said, and I mean, again, this is logical. I would have said it too. But this is the guy who said when he was interviewed recently in GQ, they were asking him about, do you make sort of the bad cop decisions? He says, yeah, but that really great gaming console, he's talking about, you know, the coders coming to him or the engineers coming to him and saying, we have this idea for a great game console that's going to blow everybody away. And his quote was, yeah, but that really great gaming console is going to sell for $1,000. Sorry, we can't do it. So he's got a pragmatic streak that may not be reflected in the previous regime of Sony. And in that, if I'm a God of War fan, I'd be watching for that. That's what you should be worried about. I'm not saying there's any evidence that's going to happen, but I would be worried that the Santa Monica team goes to Jimmy Ryan and says, hey, we need more time. And historically, they have always gotten it. And now he might be like, you know what? I know you need more time, but Christmas won't wait. And you guys are one of the best in the business. I'm sure it's going to be great. And boom, they're off to the races, and there's your game. And it isn't what you wished it was or what they wished it was because they didn't get that extra 4 or 5 months polish. I'd be worried about that instead of be worrying about CrossGen. CrossGen's eventually going to fade away once the PS4 dies. But this, a game that could have been more polished but wasn't just because they wanted to make Christmas, that is going to live with you forever.